Okay, recording
Welcome.
has begun.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to this meeting of the College Career and Life Readiness Committee. Um, Due to member availability, we are going to slightly amend the agenda that we posted to the public, and we are going to discuss AI first. And so we will swap that with our task force work discussion. So we're going to begin with our discussion on AI resolutions that are before this committee. And we had information shared by Director Butler with the committee regarding the leadership meeting with the deputy mayor, and a couple months back discussion with Aussie on this topic. And I want to turn to Representative Best for kind of the latest update on this.
Can we actually, sorry to put you on the spot, but can we start
No
with
problem.
Dr. Anderson since he was in that meeting, if he could share out with the group like what that conversation was like as far as the DME as it relates to the AI work?
Sure. I'm more than happy to provide some insight into that particular meeting. When we brought this up with the DME, basically they gave us some examples of people who were doing it best. And as you and I talked about individually, they pointed out Friendship, who had been instituting AI really well. They didn't really seem to have a clear plan of how they were going to institute it. They said they've been to a number of meetings and found out that everybody has a way of thinking about this and how they want to institute it, but they had no real clear plan as how they were going to start instituting AI. Um, the resolutions that we have, and you and I talked about stuff like that, they hadn't said that they were, given that any thought at this particular time, but they look forward to working with us. That's the pretty much synopsis, quick and dirty synopsis of the meeting.
Yeah, so I still personally think when I think about like what a resolution is, it's like our recommendation, our position on a specific topic. Um, I think I think I'm still in favor of pushing the resolution through and then doing some outside work to try to make it happen. So the yesterday or last night, I sat in on a meeting. Well, I facilitated a meeting with DCPS's lead on AI with the Ward 6 Parent Teacher Organization, and really learned a lot about what DCPS was doing and what they had planned. And honestly, like it made me feel good. It made me feel really good about like the work that they were doing. I've asked him to share some of that with me. I think he's going to share some of that with me. And so once again, I feel good about where DCPS is. And I think we also were aligned on a lot of things, especially on alignment as far as the training, whether it's the leadership and the teacher training. And, they have some pretty good guidance that they have already as well. And so I don't see why or how we couldn't, I don't see why we shouldn't continue to push the way that we are pushing, and then provide a set of informations or next steps for OSSI or DME based off of the information that we have, based off of the information that DCPS already has. Because from what it looks like, it sounds like from the conversations that I've heard, is they just don't know where to start. They don't know where to go. And I don't think that's acceptable. And so for me, I think we should continue to move forward. Now, I don't believe that we should push for the resolution to go through right now. I believe that we should actually set up an opportunity for there to be a panel. And in that panel, include some of the people who are doing the work. So if Friendship is doing some of this work, try to invite some of those people over, invite DCPS over to speak on the panel, get some other people in there, and invite the DME and OSSI to stay and listen, so that they can see, some of the things that are going on. So for me, I would like to hold off on sending through any of the resolutions until after we have a panel where we could get additional information, as well as have additional people speak on the rationale and the reason for doing this work. Dr. Patterson.
And I think that's where DME was kind of suggesting that we go, was just to really check in with some people who are really doing the work and have instituted. And I'm glad that you've done, some work with or listened to some other groups, and then just really coming to them and that informing our resolution. So I agree with that. Yeah, and just whether we have them on a panel or we visit Friendship and talk to Pat Brantley, their executive leader, just to figure out how they're moving with it, how they're instituting it into their particular LEA, because they are the second largest charter LEA with like 5,600 kids. Just trying to understand that as we move forward.
Yeah. And so, oh, wait, I see that there's a question. Oh, what were you going to say?
So I
Dr.
want to open to other committee members, but I will note that we do have this topic on the list of panel topics for December, so it should come up for discussion at the next working session to put on to vote on whether we do that panel in December. So I'm supportive of us, as a committee advocating for that at the working session. Any other comments from other committee members?
I think this is what we're talking about. Okay, cool.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Absolutely.
So before we get to because I think you should do a panel, absolutely. But also too, like I know like in the S and this and the C committee, like we'll have like different like presenters and things of that nature. I'm wondering, could we also have the same here so that the committee could, like learn more? So maybe like it's like you do like a both and or like a yes and or something of that nature. Would that be possible as well? Or is that duplicative?
Yeah, I think it'd be duplicative. I think that if we're asking, I don't see the value of respectfully, I don't see the value of having the same group of people presenting twice the same information. I Yes, and I think one of the biggest things or my biggest concerns whenever we have things, whether it's like via committee or whatever, is to make sure that everybody on the board gets an opportunity to hear all the information that's being shared. So just to give you some background information, we had it was what was it called, you guys? It wasn't a working group. It was a
Are you thinking of a
Round
round
table.
table?
round table, yeah. We had a round table before you were on the board. I thought it was a pretty strong group of people who spoke, but I don't think that it was well attended. I believe it was only maybe two people from the board who were present, maybe three. And I'm not sure if anyone went back and actually, checked out what was being stated. And so I think for me, it's just a really big thing on making sure everyone on the board is present when things are spoken, because there might be important information that may not be shared, and also we want to respect the time of the people who are doing the work. And so yeah, so we'll see, and hopefully we can get the folks from DCPS to present. Hopefully that won't be a challenge, because I do think that there's a lot that we could learn from what they're doing as well. I think that they have set up a pretty strong system that's in place, where I think that a lot of the charters could potentially learn from what they're doing as well. And so, I think that I'm just talking in circles, so I'm going to stop.
Okay. No, that was helpful. And maybe I should explain like where I was coming from, because sometimes like with certain topics, like sometimes I wish we had more time. And I was just trying to figure out, like, is there a way for us to have more time to like dive into the issue where it's not, okay, you have 3 minutes basically to like ask a question and respond. And so with AI, I was like, oh, this is a good one. Like, I was just hoping there was another way to have like more time out maybe separate from, of course, a public meeting. Yes, you can hear it, but just is there another vehicle that the board could use as a
I
totality for
I
just more
can
time?
I can share the presentation from last night, which was extremely informative as far as like what they're doing right now as far as DCPS, and so I can share that. It's recorded, and so that should be super helpful as well.
Thanks, Representative Best.
No problem.
Yeah, please do share that. And we will, we have the discussion on the panels at the next working session with AI on the list for December. So, and as a committee, we won't vote today on moving any of the resolutions out of committee.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure. And so now we can move to our next agenda item, which is the high school graduation requirements work. First item is to debrief on the first task force meeting. And I have a few thoughts, but I'll open the floor up to members for any thoughts about the first meeting. Thank you, Representative Best.
Thank you.
I can go first if, because I'm assuming the chairs want to go last, right?
Sure, yeah,
Or it
go
doesn't
ahead.
matter. Okay. It was nice to see everybody. I really loved the opening game that we did. I don't know if we could do that every meeting, but I think Representative Thompson asked everybody like, what year did you graduate and like what school was popular? Like I love icebreakers. So I thought that was really helpful to kind of like, break the ice. Um, I don't know if we're doing like little, I don't want to call them like working sessions, but like working groups or just diving into certain things. But I think a lot of the folks had some really great ideas. And so like when it comes to it wasn't vocation, it's yes, recommendation 6 with the practical diploma, but it was something else that people were diving into too. I just can't remember. It wasn't vocation, it was something else that we were talking
Maybe
about
the
where we could
capstone project.
thank you, the
There
capstone
was a lot
project where
about
we
that.
could where we could like dive deeper. So I'm hoping we have those. Um Also too, I'm wondering like if there's a chance that we can have the community. I know like it's a conversation, but I'm wondering if there's like a something that we can do where we just like listen to them and just really hear what it is that they're saying. I know we're asking a lot of like questions and talking to them, but I'm just trying to figure out like if we just like pose a question, maybe we spend like more time with us listening, if that makes sense. Because I know we're doing a lot of facilitating. And so I'm just trying to figure out with a little bit of time that we have, like how can we take in more information so that way we can have stronger recommendations. Maybe that's where the working groups come into, like where we dive a little bit deeper. Because I think that's what I'm getting at. Like, how do we have a little more richness and time? But I really like the task force, and I'm really like excited for them, and I think it's a really great group.
Um, Thank you for those notes. I think, I think things will look a little different in subsequent meetings. We certainly had in the first meeting, we devoted time for introductions that we won't necessarily do each time, and also we were heavy on the like us kind of presenting stuff to get the reactions. And I do think, in subsequent meetings, there will be more um, listening time, and we can divide it up in such a way that it is deeper on topics. We did get a good caution from Laura Fuchs about dividing up the task force to particularly on around decision making. We're still kind of figuring out what it might look like to divide work, particularly the work that happens in between meetings. So like I'm now leaning against having like separate topical working groups that divide us up. But we may still need to ask for smaller groups of people to do kind of more homework in between. Other members have comments or responses to Representative Johnson Law's comments?
Representative Henderson, can I respond to your comment
Sure.
or make a suggestion?
Yeah.
As like a solution-oriented suggestion. So in the boundary study, like that we did last year, there were different some of us had like different topics that we took. And so we weren't making decisions. It was more like, okay, what are we finding out and what's happening? And then we would present them and discuss with the larger group. And then all decisions were made with the larger group. So I don't know if that's helpful. I'm not sure exactly where Laura was. I know where she was coming from, but just as we talk about deeper conversations and still trying to divide the work and also be accommodating to everybody, I don't know if that would be amenable. It's not so much a decisions being made, it's more like, okay, these are the things we're seeing, we're reporting out. Now let's have a discussion with the group about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have some work to do between meetings, and I think other people also have work to do between meetings. I think um, I do. I think the question is the right dosage and the right chunk and what needs to be done. Because I was not on the boundary committee this go around. I was on the boundary committee the first go around, and we divvied up work a different way. And I know some people who were actually part of both processes, and felt like this most recent time, um, when there weren't groups that they were a part of, that there wasn't ample time to actually weigh in. Like it's like something already being at least partially baked. And I think the challenge for us is to balance um, what it looks like to gather information, um, and learn together, and make decisions together. Because I don't want to ignore that people have different expertise, and I want to respect the different expertise, and I want to make sure people can bring those to the table, um, while we are also trying to balance things like respecting people's time. And so I think it's both going to be some things that are divvied up, and then there are some things we might do together. So, for example, when we talked a bit about like what are some schools that are doing it well, I would imagine those types of experiences would not be isolated to a group that's just dealing in that topic. I would imagine it would be a learning experience that's open to the larger task force in addition to um, committee members or state board members. And so um, I think we have to get pretty concrete on between the meetings. I am less inclined to, and I think we'll start to see, but um, we will never have 30 minutes of introductions again. Um, that will never happen. No, I mean that was the right thing to do for that meeting. I don't mean that in a, but we'll never do that again because it was the first meeting. That was the first time any of us were together. We needed to all know who was in the room, why they were in the room, and just get a feel for each other. We'll never do that again, because that's not needed again. And so the question is like, what are the right vehicles for what's needed? Um, I would offer that one of the things that I still think needs to also be a little more concrete is the overall timeline of the work. Because right now, what is it? What March? It says March, April. And I think when Representative Henderson and I talked, we are more comfortable with April. I would like to say April, May is probably the most realistic. And we are, I'm taking a stab at, what do you call? Revisiting the work plan to adjust to when OSSI delivered the recommendations because the work plan is based on when OSSI initially said they would deliver the recommendations. And so the expectation is that the task force is also included in some of that conversation and fact finding and pushing things out too. And so I don't want to assume that the only place there is discussion is the task force meetings themselves.
Do you want to look at some of the proposed work plan items and how to find those out? So I believe that Haley has the work plan at the ready. And in the meantime, I wanted to add that from our discussion, like getting the reactions from the initial reactions from the task force, it seems like there's discussion around each of the 6 recommendations. Maybe, not that they're all, the same, but we did get, some positives, some questions around all 6. And so I think, we'll keep all of them kind of live in our discussion. And also in terms of like, we also asked kind of like what's missing that, is not addressed in the recommendations. And I know that one of the things that emerged from Sally Schwartz was the discussion around competency-based testing for language credits. So that's another thing that we want to keep on the agenda. And to look at the work plan, we had mapped out community engagement, which is also so running parallel to the task force meetings themselves. We have the task force engaging in community engagement. I'll also note here that Vice President Williams sent a note to ask us to think about what we want to ask of the larger board in this process, and which will serve both as a way to include them in the feedback loop of what we are hearing, and get their help in engaging, particularly engaging in their wards. So looking at the work plan, we have 2 rounds of engagement mapped out, and so we've done some panels around graduation requirements already, although those were before receiving the proposal. We also have, sorry, I think Haley's scrolling is indicating that I skipped over some stuff at the top. Did you go back to the very top?
Yeah, sorry.
No, my fault. So we have some possible briefings with CTE leaders and with special education leaders that we may still want to do. We talked about school-based engagements, a community survey. Also talked about based engagements. So we kind of need to zero in on which of these things we want to do and our timeline for doing this.
Haley, we have a request. If you could zoom in a little bit, please, so the text is a little bit larger.
Thank you.
So I'm inviting feedback on which of these engagement tasks we want to follow through with and the timing.
So I think if we're going to have larger, like citywide engagements that are um, like meetings, we need to go ahead and set dates for those. I think the question is always how many, if they're in person or virtual. In the past, we've normally offered, something virtual and at least one thing in person, something central. Uh, I don't know if I think with the focus groups, the question became if we are seeing folks not like particular experiences, voices, communities not showing up in those larger engagements that we think of as um, critical or underrepresented, then we would target folks for focus groups. Um, when we've this kind of mirrors in some ways how the governance engagement was uh, constructed. We did, and we can do this again, reach out to the Office of Racial Equity to see if they have any recommendations around how to improve engagement. But the focus groups were really designed with those in mind who might not, who we say we want to reach, but might have some difficulty showing up. And so I couldn't tell you how many or which ones I'm like, oh, we definitely need. I have some suspicions, but I don't want to be presumptuous. And then Representative Williams raised the question of if we would do a survey. I think the question of the survey is more like, um, I think for me, like what types of information do we want to get from where? Um, and I know a lot of times when it comes to like folks having to provide written feedback, it tends to skew one way or another with different types of people. And I think that's always something we want to keep in mind, like who are the most apt to respond to a survey versus come out and those kind of things. So that would be my thoughts. I actually do think it's really important that we have something that is school-based and student-based, at least one or two things, and we can talk about what that looks like. But I don't, so that those are my thoughts.
All right, thank you. Representative Johnson Law has her hand up, and then let's circle back to each of those things one by one and talk a little bit more. Representative Johnson Law.
Thanks, Representative Henderson. Just a couple of things. I like surveys, but with such deep recommendations, I'm not sure how that would translate to like our Ward 8 constituents. And the families there, it may be a little overwhelming because they would have to actually go through it all. You know what I mean? And so I think they would just need a little bit more time and clarity. Um, as I'm looking at school-based engagement, and it says DCPS, it says charters. Are are we allowed to partner with other organizations to maybe have a listening session? Like, I'm thinking about the Charter Alliance, and if they maybe bring together like all of the high school, let's say like not all of the high school. Well, no, yeah. Like let's say like we have like an engagement meeting where it's like, okay, we have like charter, like maybe like high school leaders, right? And so we have them like as many as possible, maybe like all at once, and then we go and we have like engagement, you know what I mean? Like that way. Um Representative Thompson, I think do you
We
have a
are
clarifying question?
we are allowed to partner pretty much with whoever we want. I will say that
Okay.
space implies students, not adults. So what do students think about what they're learning in this context?
Right. But in my mind, the way I'm reading this, I felt like that's like a separate session. Like, because I can you go up a little bit? Um, Thank you, dear. Because it's like school-based engagement one, school-based engagement two, and then I see school-based youth design lab, and then what's the one underneath it? Thank you. And then focus group with specific audiences. So either like the youth design lab or a group with specific audiences. I was thinking like for the youth, where we are specifically focusing on that. But I'm also thinking about, different folks who can bring folks together because like we're crunching on time because I had another idea about how we maybe let's say we chunk up two recommendations at a time, right? Like with with the task force, right? Where it's like, okay, this meeting we're gonna look at these two. This meeting we'll look at these two. This meeting we'll look at these two. That's already like three months out. And as we're doing community based engagement, that is running parallel at the same time. Okay, the people again who are not in the task force, how do we get more people to look at this at the same time to preserve time? And so I'm thinking about the alliance, bring in the high school leaders, and then from their perspective, okay, how does this translate to you? It's just an idea. Um, but that's helpful to know because I'm not sure like when we're doing community engagement, is it like one, do we have to bring this to the full board to like vote? You know what I mean? Like if we're partnering with somebody, is that something we can just vote on in committee? I don't, if anybody wants to answer, because I'm really asking.
Uh, I am open to correction here, but I think, we are executing our work plan. And so I don't think we need to go back to the full board to do that.
Okay.
Director
Um,
Butler has her hand raised, so I'm gonna have her, if you're okay, Representative Henderson.
yeah, go
Um,
ahead. And Dr. Patterson, I'm sorry, I see your hand, but I'm going to let this go ahead for continuity's sake.
Are you acknowledging me, or do you want to wait for Director
Uh,
Butler
I
to come in?
I think let's wait if that's okay with you
Okay.
because I think Director Butler wants to speak to this, and then we'll come back
Either
to you.
or both. I'll come.
Thank you.
So you all do not need board approval to execute your work plan. It is engagement that is within the committee's work. It's not full board engagement on a particular issue. This is already an issue the board has already agreed to take up, has voted and passed via resolution to create the task force. So the work connected to that doesn't need to be subsequently reapproved.
Thank you,
Thank
Director
you.
Butler.
Yeah, thank you for the clarity. Dr. Patterson, go ahead.
Yes, and I did want to state this, and it's no criticism on the selection process. It is more so on people paying attention to the process and the application process. But last Wednesday, while I was away, right as the meeting was about to be had, and we were voting on the people who would be participating, I got a call from Tammy Lewis, and it kind of goes to what Representative Johnson Law was saying that. Um, what she stated was that, and then she said it was totally her, you know, not paying attention and, until the last minute, but that she felt like you have a charter school that's part of the task force, but they're not a high school. So she did have some questions about how could they participate more with their high schools. So it kind of goes along with what Representative Johnson Law said, because they said they would like to participate a little bit more, specifically around the high school leaders since their graduation requirements. So I just wanted to add that because, again, she called me stating that I didn't pay attention, but I see you guys are voting on this tonight on the actual members, and I'm looking at the members and want to make note of that particular aspect. So what I'm saying is basically what kind of community engagement we can make sure we have some charter leaders that are high school leaders participate.
Yeah, I think we definitely want to engage both the adults and the students in schools, and so hopefully going to have a mix of engagements that are going to reach both. So to go a little deeper in each of these categories, if we start with having citywide engagement meetings, and Representative Thompson, you can speak more to the model of the governance work. I kind of have in mind the model of the report card process that we did, where we did have either 3 or 4 citywide meetings. One of them was virtual, if I remember correctly. 3 of them were in person, one of them was virtual. In any case, we had a mix, and it's I'm pondering over the best way to divide those meetings. Like I heard your suggestion, Representative Johnson Law, to maybe chunk the recommendations, and that would be one way to divide it. Another way to divide it would be to um, target different audiences over a series of citywide engagement meetings. Um, any thoughts on
Yeah, I mean,
preferred way?
I think the problem is if you have an opinion about multiple recommendations that aren't together, you got to go to separate meetings. With this, so the reason I said this is model after the governance is like because it's 2 rounds of engagement. So this first set of engagements is saying to folks, hey, this is what's in the proposal. What do you think? Like give us your reactions. I I would imagine that it would be easiest if we try to find a couple different spots in the city that people can get to in different parts of the city and then do a virtual one. Um, and then once we hear back from folk, if there are places where um, I think for the second round, if we wanted to say, um, here's what we heard. And there are kind of like with the, what do you call? With the task force, where there were things that were like clearly the most pressing, if we wanted to split it up in a way so people can respond back and dive in more deeply, I think that's helpful. Um, but I'm thinking that we need to do at least 2 meetings in person and 1 virtual. And we can discuss whether it's better to talk about central locations versus one at each end of the city or something, um, and then a virtual one. But I think you want to give people at least 2 dates um, as options, because yeah, if you miss your thing, you miss your thing, and that's what I worry about for folks, because life is happening.
Right. Agree. I would suggest maybe so two in-person meetings, 1 virtual, um, 1 in a central MLK library type very accessible location, and then another in person east of the river at an agreed upon location, also accessible. Um, and this being for the first round, uh, we are kind of holding the timeline loosely, but um, would you say, like, let's do this by the end of November?
Yes. Uh, I would say before Thanksgiving, um, because I find once you get into
Mhm.
December, uh, then those are just lost weeks for community engagement. So, um, yeah, which is why I'm also saying like we would have to move pretty quickly because November is 30 seconds away. So we
Okay.
would essentially be looking at probably, um, let me look at the calendar, like that week of the 17th um, would be, because I know it, we got to get all the stuff in place. Like it takes so probably that week of the 17th. I don't know if we have a preference on like if we want to do virtual as the last session or not, but we might be able to get into the week of the 10th. Um,
Do you want to do like the week of the 10th, make that virtual since it's sooner, and make like the week of the 17th in person? You know what I mean? To give more time to secure location.
I think we just kind of note for the staff right now, and then look. I tend to like to do the virtual one last, just because if life
You can
happens, then
catch
people can
people.
jump
Yeah.
on virtual. Um, And sometimes I think of it like, you know, if I miss my exercise class in the morning, I can go in the evening. But I'm planning to go. I want people to plan for the thing that, is the most interaction. So I would prefer to round it out with virtual. And I think we just see what we can do as far as logistics, aiming for if we can get one in person the week of the 10th, one in person the week of the 17th, and a virtual one the week of the 17th. That would be, or maybe we get two in person the week of the 10th, but um, between those 2 weeks, because we also want to give enough time to just put it out in the ethos as
Yeah.
well.
Mm.
Um, can I ask my east of the river colleagues to suggest a few possibilities for location for an in-person?
Um, I'm always thinking of Anacostia Library and like the room that they have at the bottom for some reason. Like I don't, I think it's because a lot of community things are there, so that could be one. Um,
I think the trickiest thing, I mean, I always appreciate something east of the river. Uh, but honestly, the trickiest thing with east of the river is it is hard to get around from place to place east of the river if you don't drive. Like something might be physically close, but not necessarily public transit friendly. Is something we run into a lot. And so I try to think about what has parking and what folks can get to on the metro. Um, In my ward, those are going to be Deanwood Recreation Center is going to be Dorothy Height Library, and it's going to be in my ward east of the river. I think those are probably the two that are going to be, we can put in a request as a government thing and get to. And then, yes, in Ward 8, I would say TMA is something that has parking, some parking. Park is kind of raggedy, but yeah, but people can get to it on the metro. Um, yeah, it's mostly going to be like Anacostia. I don't know if you all have other suggestions, but I try to do both because I never know how people are traveling, um, especially in the evening.
yeah. So a lot of times people recommend Anacostia Library. I put it in the chat is because like it's near Anacostia Metro, and it's the bus stop is right in front of it as well. And they have in the back, they have parking in the parking lot, and there's always parking, like there's always street parking over there too. So that's why I think a lot of people that's just like one of my like top places like to recommend to people. I was thinking about Bellevue, but Bellevue is like on the other side and it's not really metro accessible, so that's out. So I think that's why a lot of people defer a lot of times to Anacostia. And they also have that room. It's a bigger room. It's down at the bottom. I
So
think
can,
it fits up to 100.
sorry.
Oh, go. I'm sorry, Representative Henderson. I think I was just stating that I think they can fit up to 100 people, I believe, in that room downstairs.
All right. So can we ask staff to explore the suggested locations and um, dates? So that's um, one or two in-person meetings the week of November 10th. If it's one, then another in-person meeting the week of the 17th, and then a virtual meeting the week of the 17th. Then I think
Yes.
we can probably use um, we'll want to do the outreach, the same kind of outreach that we did around the report card meetings, and make sure that we're hitting those, um, those partners that we mentioned who have reach to get the word out.
Representative Henderson, can I ask another question? S- so I saw the staff that they put that we're also meeting with the task force on the 20th. So when we do the community outreach, in the past, do you all do the community outreach? You're listening to what they say and then take that back to the task force since we'll be meeting so close to get their reaction? Or is this in addition to, like, yes, we already have the task force, we're going to talk to them, and we are just doing separate community outreach just to get their take on things? Or
Well,
is it
no,
both?
yeah, we'll share what we're hearing from our community outreach with the task force. Definitely.
Yeah, and I would say the expectation is also that the task force would be helping to promote the outreach to their
Hmm.
networks and hopefully attend and participate. Like they're not barred from like giving their feedback as well. And so I would imagine that it wouldn't just be our impressions. Like we might have impressions from some task force members that would be valuable to share back. The other thing
Hmm.
I would note is um, I believe the follow-up email went out yesterday. But
Hmm.
we are confirming with folks that the third Thursday is the best day. We do want to set up a standing meeting for the task force, and we want to make sure that we're publicly noticing. But this was our first opportunity to ask folks about their availability. And so that date may also change.
All right. So that sounds good to me for a plan for the citywide engagements. Um, if we could talk next about a survey, whether we want to do a survey and what it might look like, and what kind of timeline we might want to pursue for a survey. I think it would be helpful to do a survey. Um, we can have a little bit of a longer timeline um, on that, I believe, to go into maybe mid-December. Other thoughts
I
on,
just
go ahead.
I just work because I'm thinking about East of the River and Ward 8. And I'm thinking about the past surveys that the board did, and I'm thinking about the participation of the ward. And I'm just concerned that if we do it, am I going to hear, right, like our Ward 8 voices and our Ward 8 families and school partners about what they think? And these are some deep recommendations. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, how is that going to translate to a survey? Because you know what I mean? Like, because it's a little more, it's deeper. Like, it's not like a yes or no. This is like an iterative process of like a feedback. And I know folks are really busy. There's a lot going on. The holidays are coming, and I just don't want. Yeah, I'm always thinking about you, like board eight. I don't want them to get kind of like swept up. You know what I mean?
Go
I mean,
ahead, Rep. Thompson.
I think it's up to us to and there's some work to do around like what questions we would ask and how we design. Um, I am not under the impression that a survey is going to capture all voices. I also uh, am not going to pretend that there's not always additional outreach and work that has to be done. Um, and I could say that as someone who's had to do additional work and outreach in my community. I think um, we the one of the reasons that like again we have things like focus groups is to um, balance that um, and so like also to balance our capacity. So like the reason we have focus groups as part of governance was because we knew that we were going to get a lot of responses from certain parts of the city, and then there were literally focus groups we went out and did because we didn't know if we were hearing enough voices from folks whose first language wasn't English, folks who lived east of the river, folks who might be foster parents or grandparents. And so I think for me, the most important question is not if it's all voices, because I'm automatically assuming it's not going to be all voices. But it is what questions could we ask that would add value? Um, and if the answer is we don't know or we don't have questions that would be of value, then we shouldn't do a survey. I would imagine we would not be asking yes or no questions. I would imagine, I think it would be really hard to design a survey that didn't have, longer written responses. But I would imagine something like net promoter scores might be, not net promoter, but scales might be helpful. Like, how much do you agree with this? What would you like to add? Like, what do you think is missing? Those some of those kinds of things just to get a like as a temperature check, not as a decision point. Because if a bunch of people come back to us and say, I really hate recommendation X, and we hadn't heard that, from the task force and we go into the public engagements, we would be surprised, right? So it just to help us kind of like prepare and like a temperature check more than like anything else.
Yeah, I mean, we would have the advantage of like it's not going to be our only touch point, so it's one among many.
Hmm.
And I definitely agree with the idea that um, if we look at the survey and who responded, and we see groups that are missing, that we can do um, other forms of targeted outreach. So maybe a first step for us is just to begin um, sketching out what the survey might look like. And I know that the board has done surveys in the past. I don't know if there's a particular staff member who specializes in that, or if it's just kind of up up to us to um, work it out. Um, but I
Well,
think,
I've only worked. I have only worked with Darren with surveys, but we also have some new staff.
mhm,
Um, and one of the things I would also like us to think about is before we do the survey, what would be like in addition to what questions will we ask and how we design it. Um, what would success look like as far as reach?
mhm,
Yes, we overly sampled in the governance survey of Ward 3 because a lot of people responded, but we actually had metrics for like, this is how many people we're trying to reach from Ward 7, this is how many people we're trying to reach from Ward 8, based on what would be representative. And then we didn't cut it off to folks in Ward 3 saying you can't, but like saying like having an idea of like what is enough, I think is actually really important. And whether that means like, we're going to pour in a couple dollars around like social media ads or how many places we have to print or whatever, like those things also tend to be helpful. And yeah, I see Jen's point about the scope because these are scope questions. But we would have to make some decisions around that. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so timeline, would it push us past December?
As the survey.
Yeah.
Well, if
I'm
we,
asking Jen, I think.
yeah, I think it depends on if we have to contract it out or not.
Yeah, agreed.
hmm
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons I'm saying that making some decisions about what we want to address. And so maybe and I know that's a bigger question that I personally don't have the answers to. I'm charging myself with answering that question too,
Mhm.
is part of it. Because if it's depending on the design, really is going to account for if we have to contract it out or not.
Okay.
Mm.
I
Well,
would say too, oh, go ahead, Representative Johnson Law.
Oh no, I was just saying, got it. That's understandable. Executive Director, please.
I would say particularly when it comes to the survey, is to make a decision on its usefulness as a utility and tool, but also look at, do you want the survey now to just respond to what we've gotten from OSSI? Or would it be more helpful to have the survey once you all have done all the other engagements, worked with the task force, and then created a set of recommendations and use the survey to get, that final sign off piece? Because if you do the in-person engagements, the virtual engagements, the task force work, the survey could maybe sort of wrap all that up together at the end once you have a set of recommendations. Um,
I like
I
that.
just, it just seems like, I don't know, it's a lot of getting input on the exact same thing if we're doing it before Christmas, like before the new year, and you all haven't had a chance to form recommendations yet. And so that may be a useful tool in the new year before you end the process, where we can start the contracting process now to get someone on board by January or February when you guys have gotten enough feedback and actually now writing or revising the recommendations.
well, generally speaking, we're talking
I
about
like that.
two rounds of this engagement. So we might want to do two surveys.
Yeah, I think that was my suggestion, was that you all only do one. That's what I did. I get the fact that you wanted to do two.
No, but Director Butler, I think you make a good point though. Like you make a great point though about because I think that's kind of what I was thinking. Because if there's a meeting, because to Representative Thompson's point about the month of December, like people are just kind of like, it's people just are like, look, the year is up, the holidays are coming, I have no capacity, I have nothing left, right? So if we're trying to do all this, like now I'm thinking for the staff and for us and just there are other things that are happening and going on that we're all doing. Okay, we do the engagement sessions because we still haven't gotten to this is like just citywide. Like we haven't even gotten to like school based and all the other things and breaking down the recommendations and all the things that are coming with all of this. And we still have a task force meeting, I believe, on the 20th, and the following week is the week of Thanksgiving. And so I believe, kids are out of school. And so I do like the idea of just because the recommendations are a lot. And I would just love for us to do the engagement to figure out, okay, what are people thinking? And then taking those and then giving the staff the time to find a contractor and then okay and to say, hey, these are the things we've been working on, these are the things the task force is working on, these are the things we're hearing with the community, but the process is not finished, we still want to include your voices. Like what do you think about this, What is missing? Do you want to add something? Should something be taken out? And so that's what Director. I was thinking along the lines of what you were saying. Thank you for putting it a lot more clear than I did.
I mean, I still want to do both, but that's my preference.
Well, what if you do it in your individual capacity? You can still do it. I mean, or you can't
No,
do
I
it.
don't. I wouldn't do it. I mean, I can do work
Like for
towards
Ward
it.
5, maybe.
Mm-mm.
No, I
Oh, you
don't.
can't do
mean,
Yeah,
that?
well, no,
you can, and
you
I,
can.
I just don't want to.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna yield the best result because then we would
Yeah,
only have responses from
they would
Ward
be
5.
skewed. Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, so I don't, that's why I was like, mm-mm. Um, I don't, I don't have a strong opinion yet. I think, um, and we don't have to decide this right now, but I think I'm trying to think about what are we asking? Um, right. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me take a stab at um putting on paper both what questions we might ask and what goals we have from the survey, and then we can react to that if
Okay.
that's okay.
hmm That's okay.
And then all right. So and third category to discuss, and then we can move on. School-based engagement. Um, I do think we want to engage both students and school leaders. That might there might be an opportunity for us to see if we have gotten a lot of feedback from school leaders in the citywide engagements that we don't need to do school-based engagement with adults, but that we can just focus on students and school visits.
Yeah, I mean, I think so when I created these categories, I'll tell you what I was thinking. Not that it has to uh, be all of them or that they can't be modified, but just so because again, I created these for people to have something to respond to. So the thought was school-based engagement would be us going to schools. Now, if we had a survey, maybe we're making sure students fill out the survey, or it would be something where maybe it's like a facilitated smaller conversation with students to get feedback on the recommendations as far as like, okay, what's your experience now? Um, I think this would be particularly helpful for like some of the changes around math, some of the recommendations around CTE, like those kinds of things. Like, so we have a sense of how like how students are experiencing those things now. So they're kind of targeted. The youth design lab was a different thought. It's actually partnering with some of our youth organizations. So like MICVA or the SAC or Youth in Government through, I believe that's YMCA, for them to actually have a youth session, uh, a targeted session towards young people, like we have the community sessions. Um, and so they're different in kind of like the facilitation, but like school-based is probably a way to say focus group for young people, which is a different thing, I think. Um,
And is this a place where we want to invite other board members to
yeah, like
join in their wards?
I was thinking like this could be done in conjunction with like some of the school visits. So like let's say we go
Mhm.
to the ATC to see how some of the CTE is working and we would have a chance to talk with some of the students around their current experience. Like we would have some targeted questions around like, you know, what does this pathway look like? If we made these changes, would that make it be better? Like, do you have a clear sense of like those kind of things? Which is different than like a larger student meeting, which would be um, the youth design lab option, student led, student centered.
Is there one for school leaders in here?
Well,
There is not one targeted for school leaders in here, I don't think, not in that way. So we do have not generally school leaders. We have that we have engagement with CTE folks, which will be in cases school leaders. And then I think we have one that's like specific to special education, which I think assumes school leaders. Outside of that, more broadly, school leaders, I think it's assumed that they would attend some of the community sessions. We could do a separate one for school leaders if we saw a need for that, but that is not on the list of things that is in this work plan.
yeah, I mean, I was thinking of in making sure to invite them to the citywide engagements, but I think there's also opportunity for asking board members to reach out to the school leaders in their wards to get feedback on the proposal.
Can I make a suggestion that maybe we just do one and just, I know like even if it's just one, I'm just curious and we maybe hold them together. And again, we could partner with like maybe like um I don't know why I was about to say WTU. That's not necessary. Well, that's I can teachers are well, teachers aren't school leaders. I mean, teachers are
I'm
school
sorry.
leaders, but they're not like principals. But I'm just thinking of like I'm thinking of like implementation, right? Like for those, the students are on receiving end, the families are on receiving end. Like something for those who have to implement what it is that we are saying. Do you understand? Yeah, 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 you understand? Like principals, teachers, staff, they have to implement these recommendations once they are finalized. And I'm thinking like for the community, that's like a little bit of everybody. And yes, they can come out, but I'm just thinking of like even if it's just one and we like have different partners to come in, especially again, like I'm gonna like the different high schools, like in Ward 8 or the different charter schools, like just to get their take since they're the ones that do have to implement it.
I mean, we could do anything, right? Like I think um from what I understand from Aussie, and I think this, yep, and this probably would have been helpful during the debrief conversation. But I think one of the things that we have to talk about is like what Aussie's involvement is in the task force because they are part of the task force, and how we are not being duplicative because what I don't know, and am assuming from the materials I read, is that for the first draft of recommendations, that school leaders were very much a part of the input. And so I think uh, that is a question to have, something to talk about with like Dr. Jones, as far as like what that has looked like. Because I know they did specific conversations with folks, like, and I was one of them. And so I don't want to be redundant at the first stage of the process. Um, I think this actually could be really useful once we're saying, here's what we have heard and here's what we're proposing. Um, to have like a separate school leader engagement in the second round of engagement. But I think I think I would have a better sense of that based on what my assumptions about Aussie's engagement because they did do specific school leader engagement already.
Yeah, Representative Johnson Law, are you okay with us getting an answer to that question and then circling back to that particular
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
outreach?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm just, just wanted to make sure that they're included and just how they see and how they view things, and maybe like kind of like what Representative Thompson said like earlier about some people may not have caught the first end, like when they were doing it. So maybe this is a way for them
Yeah.
to maybe catch it on the back end. And so just trying to make sure that they're uplifted and on both sides of the sector. That's all. Hmm.
Yeah, and like they're always welcome, and we should also be targeted well when we're advertising the citywide engagements. Like we need to specifically invite them, and I think we would.
Yeah. And I mean, I know some of my principals are more comfortable with attending and voicing things in public than others, so I can
Mhm.
appreciate a need for their own space. I just also don't want to be redundant.
Yeah.
If they've already been asked certain questions and then they get there and they're just like, because the one job I could probably never have as being a school leader is just so intense and never ending. And so I want to uh, both make sure, to your point, that their voices are there and use their time wisely, which is why I'm kind of leaning toward the second round because I know it'll be something new.
Hmm.
And I think we'll be at a place where hopefully we have refined and I and this is, and I want to state that this is an assumption. I would imagine they also are going to want to talk about how, which is not really it's relevant because I'm also a how
Hmm.
person, which is one of the reasons I moderate and police my expectations when we are talking about policy conversations, because you do want to create something that works, and all of the questions around the how probably are not going to be answered yet because we're not necessarily at the implementation of things, and so that's another reason I'm leaning toward, as I'm thinking out loud, this being valuable once we say, okay, here's what we've heard and here's what we're recommending. What do you think?
All right. So I'm noting to answer the question of how school leaders were involved at this up to this stage,
Hmm.
and so we can then appropriately plan when we want to prioritize a targeted outreach, maybe just to them. It makes sense to do it now, or if that's already been done, if we should push it to later. Um, one more thing on this topic, I think, before we move on, is just like timeline. Are we do we want to have this first round with school based? I know all notes about December, yes, but the students should still be in school during December. So maybe looking at early December to try to get some of these visits. Okay.
I like
And
it.
then asking member input on maybe which schools make sense to approach. Director Butler.
I would look at for some type of engagement, how you all can utilize EdFest. Because the staff will be at these events, we have confirmed our tables. So if there's any type of engagement around, particularly at the high school one, um, is there something that could be used there to gather input from students and parents? Whether it's a sticker thing or anything of the sort, something we may be able to have on a laptop, because that could count as engagement since we're already going to be there and since the parents and students will already be there.
Yeah, good note. I mean, if we do have a survey, that would be a great place to have, you know, the QR code or whatever to get people there. And we might also have some other informal um, poster board or something where people can put stickies or whatever. So thank you for that note. I do want to move us to our last agenda item, which may be a quick one, which is the CTE panel. And so I don't know if there has been any outreach to date, or if we are just fully open right now to suggestions for panelists.
So I can just give you an update on this. I have talked to Representative Thompson about some of the folks that she wanted. And I have some suggestions from other staff members, but we just wanted to get suggestions from you. I also wanted the committee's input on the panel description. So I'm going to copy the draft of the panel description and put that in the chat right now. And you all can let me know if that sounds like it's going to cover all of your questions. And if anyone has any suggestions of panelists, particularly kind of on the practitioner side, anybody who you know, is working directly with students in CTE.
I'm thinking of Principal Fuller at Phelps, and maybe somebody with the ACT.
I was definitely gonna suggest, like, definitely get someone from the Advanced Technical Center. And then for some reason, I don't know why I'm thinking about Dr. Lee at UDC. 'Cause as we think about post-secondary, you know, what does that mean on the other side?
Yeah, those all make sense to me. Any other thoughts, comments? And if somebody comes to mind later, let Haley know.
Yeah, absolutely. Just reach out and let me know if you have any feedback on the panel description that I put in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the folks who have launched like the talent capital work might be good here. I know Anna Smith used to be the um, workforce investment council person. It actually might actually be helpful to get somebody from the WIC, but um, she's been working on like entry level stuff and like matching the entry level to what jobs are available. So like she would know we have 2,000 carpenter openings, but we only have one carpentry program, like that kind of thing. When it looks at like pathways for the trends. And I can pull like the announcement from some of that work, but that might be helpful, or talking to DME might be helpful as far as like some of their 2043 compact stuff, um, and how these things align, like the overall industry and trajectory picture.
Yeah, sound like good suggestions. Haley, if you also put the description in the follow-up email, I mean, it looks, my first reaction is it looks right to me. But if you put it in the follow-up, we can also give feedback in response to that.
Perfect. I'll include it there.
All right. Any new business for the committee? I see no new business for the committee. I will note that we do want to keep moving towards the site visits. And Representative Thompson has recommended Verteris be one of the priority sites to visit. And so it's probably not too soon to start work on setting that up, you think?
Yeah, I was just gonna
And
talk to Dr. Zapata and socialize the idea with her,
okay,
uh, and go from there. And
all right.
after
Well,
we talk to Andrew, so Ossie is on board.
okay, we'll take our cues from you on that then. And if committee members would just keep in mind other possibilities that you might want to add to the list of places to visit or implementation. And if there is no other new business, I will
Represent
suggest that, yeah, go ahead.
sorry, just one more question as a follow-up to what y'all were saying. Do we have like a list of all the things that we're focusing on in regards to implementation? So that way we can like maybe like drop like suggestions
I
like
mean,
in a like in a document or something of that nature.
I don't know if that exists. We could make that, but primarily we've been talking about looking at implementation of new standards or visits that
Like
are especially
social
relevant to our task force work. Social, emotional, financial literacy, social
social
studies.
studies.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, those three are the priority. So they're new standards, and that's how I work as a committee. And then there are the things that have come up as that the task force. So it's six things. So it's financial literacy, social studies, and social emotional. And then it is the three things that the task force surface, which are special education with regard to the practical studies diploma, CTE, and the capstone, like what that looks like
Mhm.
currently.
Okay. Are we
Um,
able to get a document? Because I have like a couple of suggestions. Like for SPED, I love River Terrace, but I'm also thinking about SPED has two lenses. There's like a River Terrace is a very restrictive environment. And so there's also the other side of SPED where you have students who are not in a complete self-contained setting, which is where majority of them are. And like, you know what I mean? And then of course, like, you know what I mean? Like, is there a way for us to like document this so we can just put suggestions, like keep like a running document, or do I need to create it? Can the staff create it? Like, what
I
can,
mean, if there's a desire for a document, we can make one. I think we've just been keeping these things in the meeting notes because at each meeting we've been saying like, hey, what do people think? But if we need a separate document and that's helpful, um, I'm not opposed to it. But that would be the place to find it. So we've been asking at each committee meeting. In addition to, we have asked the task force members. Um, what their suggestions might be.
yeah, so like email away or say them or
Mhm.
whatever. But we
or
can also
hands?
make a we can ask Haley, can we ask you to start a document with a list for visits?
Yeah, I can start that.
Thank you,
Thank
Haley.
you. All right, so now I will suggest that we adjourn our meeting. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Representative Mazumdar, for joining.
Mhm.
And we can stop recording.